Thank you all for having me here today. I'll wait for the slides to get up. It's a privilege to be here in Sofia. As Steve said, I have the great pleasure of leading expansion for Uber in Europe, the Middle East, and Africa. Just with a show of hands, how many of you have had an opportunity to use Uber in one of our cities around the world? The second question I usually ask is how many people have had an opportunity to use Uber in the city we're in, but that's something we're working on as we speak. I'll just give you a bit of background and tell you a bit about our story. I think it's one that has been of strong growth globally in footprint, but also about adapting to local markets. And I think that's something that many of you in the room as entrepreneurs are thinking about how you make a product that's relevant not just for your local market, but for a broader base of consumers. And with the accessibility of the internet, the opportunities that exist for that and tapping into customers that are far away from you are certainly tremendous. I'll start with a bit of history, because Uber, like many of the companies in this room, started as an idea, a concept that was very unproven. This is a photo of our co-founders, Garrett Kemp and Travis Kalanick. It's taken in Paris at the Web conference. And Garrett and Travis are serial entrepreneurs, and they're always talking and thinking about the next idea. And so they're in Paris, a city with a notoriously bad taxi system, and they're thinking about where they could bring technology to help improve the lack of efficiency, the inability to find a reliable ride in various parts of the city or at certain times of night. And so this was the problem that they chose to tackle. I like this photo. This is in New York City, and this woman is looking to hail a taxi, and the cab in front of her is actually empty, and it's just driving past her. And we're not sure why, but this problem, this lack of efficiency, is what we seek to achieve. For those of you not familiar with how Uber works, it's pretty simple. It's mobile only. So you download a smartphone app, and the idea is with 2 taps of a button, a car and driver is on its way to pick you up. The way it works is you request, you see sort of a basic map interface, and then what happens instantly is you're given confirmation about who your driver is, what he or she looks like, the relevant contact information. You're able to contact the driver directly in the application. And then at the end of the ride, you just get out of the car. There's no cash exchange, there's no card transaction that takes place in the car. It's all done digitally and seamlessly. So our values and what we seek to deliver in the markets that we're in globally are fairly consistent. It's about reliability, about transparency and pricing, being cashless and convenient, and then having a feedback loop that matters, that allows for accountability on the part of our driver partners, and then bringing technology into this arena in a useful way. So oftentimes you may want to share the cost of a ride with your friend. Well, Uber has a way to do that directly in our application. You may want to share your location with a friend or family member so that they know you've arrived safely, and we've built a way to do that as well. That ethos, that philosophy is what's allowed us to expand in just under 4 years to 35 countries and over 110 cities globally. It's a bit faint on the screen, but that's a map, and the blue dots are the cities we're in. We're now in more cities outside of the US than we are in the US. And I think it's helpful to think about how we got to this point, because it certainly wasn't something that happened overnight, and it certainly wasn't something that happened accidentally. I like this photo, our journey, and where we come from. This is the original sort of iteration of Uber's app. You can see pretty basic, a map, cars available, and a way to request them. Over the years, we've evolved, and this is what the app looks like today, but it's actually got a similar layout. The idea is to be as simple and as seamless as possible to get you that car in as little amount of time with as little effort. You can see at the bottom now we've expanded to different options or flavors of Uber depending on what you're looking for, whether it's a premium service or a luxury experience or just want to get from point A to point B as quickly as possible. The original name of our company was Uber Cab, sort of a mashup of grammatically incorrect German and Californian. And this was our original website. It's really bad. On-demand car service via iPhone and SMS. I'm a bit embarrassed to say how long we had this website up. It was actually not that long ago. That's evolved, and our ambitions have evolved, and what we like to think we're doing now is moving people. This is an internal tool we have at Uber. We call it GodView, and what it allows us to do is in real time measure what's going on in one of our cities anywhere around the world. So this was an early day in San Francisco, our first market, and each of the blue lines on that screen are concurrent Uber trips that are going on. So at this point there were 4 concurrent trips going on, and we thought we had made it. We thought this was what success looked like. People were drinking champagne and celebrating. And this is what San Francisco looks like on a recent day in terms of cars that are logged onto our system. That success happened fairly quickly. It was something that I think was just a result of delivering a strong product experience and delivering a mechanism for people to share that with their friends. With that success came something that Paul alluded to earlier, which was some challenges. This is a TechCrunch article from 2010. I love the first sentence. It says, did Uber Cab just crash and burn? What we received was a cease and desist letter, essentially an order to stop operating from the state of California, Public Utilities Commission, so the same people that regulate electricity regulate for-hire vehicles in California. And what happened was something that we didn't really predict, which was our customers became the biggest vocal advocates, similar to Chris's example of the protest in Korea. Our customers became the biggest vocal advocates of our product and got very loud on Twitter and email with elected officials and civil servants and made their passion for Uber known. When you think about our business, there's 2 sides to it. There's customers that sign up and use our app, and there are driver partners who use Uber as a way to generate additional income. And those driver partners got very loud and supportive. And that strategy of enabling your users to be vocal for you when you're disrupting an existing market that has entrenched interests and is not necessarily transparent in regulation is something that we've continued to rely on and continued to seek as we've grown. And so in many of the cities around the world that we're in, certainly in the US, but now globally as well, we've called on those users to help keep our business alive, to help continue to give cities more options in transportation, and to help give our driver partners more opportunities for economic advancement. That's sort of how Uber works at the macro level. When you think about growth and expansion, Paris is kind of where it comes back to. So as I mentioned, it's where the idea for Uber was conceived. We went back to Paris in 2011. It was the first international city for Uber. At this point, we were in several cities in the US. And Paris was a natural place to start because of a broken transport system and a lot of opportunity. And we went to Paris and we found that when we expanded into a new market, what customers wanted was very similar to what they wanted in San Francisco. That, sure, the flavor of the product, the language, the team we hired to market was different, but the delivery of this product, despite it being in the offline world, using technology as a way to enable access, was very similar. And so the critics came to us and they said, well, Paris is a city with broken taxis. This will never work in London. So we went to London. And London's a city with a good taxi system. And what we found in London was it was about choice for consumers. It was about giving consumers options at different price points, premium services for a date night and a lower cost option just to get where you need to go. And London is one of our largest cities at Uber. We have several thousand entrepreneurs working with Uber, building businesses in London. And so, the critics came back and they said, well, Uber will never work in emerging markets. Uber will never work in China or in India. So we went to China. And Chris mentioned Alipay, and Uber was actually the first application that integrated Alipay natively that was outside of China. And we came in, and this is what Uber looks like in China today. And Alipay has been an incredible way for us to grow and scale. And I think it's a theme that we've chosen to employ, which is figure out your non-negotiables. And for us, that's about seamless technology, mobile first, mobile only, cashless transactions, but also understand where you need to adapt to be relevant locally. And this was an example where we felt that this partnership and delivering a payment option that was locally relevant was necessary and critical to success. The next criticism was Uber will never work in countries with bad infrastructure, with bad roads, where you can't predict traffic patterns, and where it's difficult to even have strong 3G coverage in cities across the city. And so we went to India, and India is now the country at Uber where we have the most number of active cities outside of the US. As of today, we're in 6 cities in India. And the growth we've seen has been phenomenal. Because in emerging markets, where people lack reliability in transport services, the option of having a reliable service, that wins. And the idea of entrepreneurship in emerging markets is even more pronounced because of social stratification and gaps in income. People said Uber would never work in cities that aren't necessarily considered safe. We went to Latin America. This is in Bogota, Colombia. And it's been one of our fastest growing cities at Uber. There's a perception that Uber is luxury cars. I think this is a Kia or a Hyundai. And the idea is you just want to get from point A to point B. In places like Colombia, getting in a flashy car is not a good thing in terms of drawing attention to yourself. And so the idea of safety and security and bringing technology as a way to empower people who have concerns about that in their transportation world became a very relevant thing that we ran after. We went to Russia. This is actually a photo of one of my colleagues that appeared in a Russian magazine. I make fun of him for it. And what he's standing in front of is he's standing in front of a Maybach. And that's actually on Uber in Moscow. And so this idea of like run to your market, know who your users are, right? Like if any of you have been to Moscow, like there's a segment for that. And we've seen some good success there. One of the countries that I'm really passionate about, and we've seen great story come out of, is South Africa. This is a photo of a gentleman named Midas, who's one of our driver partners in Johannesburg. Midas was a salaried driver for another company that was partnering with Uber. And he worked with Uber, he saved enough money, and he actually went out and bought his own car. That's his BMW that he's standing in front of. And bought his own car, started his own business, and has evolved into an entrepreneur and a business owner. Has more control over his own fate, and is already talking about buying additional cars and building a larger business. And that theme, that Steve mentioned of people working with Uber to fulfill their passions and dreams is something that we've seen scale globally, and something that we're particularly proud of and we're very reliant on. We also did something in South Africa recently, an election there recently, where we offered free rides on election day, and this was actually a screenshot of our app, and those South African flags are actually cars that are able to be requested. So a bit tongue-in-cheek in the graphics of the app, but the idea of delivering something that's relevant locally. We've also evolved not just in footprint and expanded in footprint, but we've also expanded in product, right? And part of what we seek to be is on the leading edge of innovation and transportation. And so we have a product called Uber Pop in Europe. It's in Brussels, Barcelona, Berlin, Frankfurt. And the idea is ride sharing, cheap and friendly alternatives to expensive local cabs, and building a community of individuals that is committed to improving transportation, improving the efficiency of fixed assets, so empty cars, like Paul mentioned, and the ability for people who are students or working part-time to supplement their income. It's been challenging. It's not an easy process to go through, and it's not an easy battle to fight. But we're confident that the power of consumers and the voices that support choice are the ones that will eventually prevail. This is a slide on our expansion history. We didn't actually put this together. Some random guy on the internet did. And the blue dots are is sort of a trail of our American expansion. The red dots are a trail of our international expansion over a timeline of less than 4 years. And you can see the rate at which we've scaled globally has actually been faster than the rate at which we've scaled in the US. And part of that has been because people in cities like Sofia have signed up for Uber, downloaded the app, and tried to actually request cars in cities we're not operating in. We actually use that as a measure to determine where we go and better understand what we need to do to deliver products locally, whether it's testing payments in Africa or testing products in Latin America. The business has grown, and that's a good thing, But I think perhaps what's more encouraging for us is every city we go to, a new city we go to, is actually doing better in performance in its early stage than our first city, than San Francisco. So San Francisco, this city that's seen as this progressive, tech first, it's my hometown. All of our new cities are actually doing better than San Francisco, right? And it's this theme that the world is bigger than Silicon Valley. There is so much out there, and there's so much need out there. This is where, this is what gets us really excited. When you think about Uber, we have two types of customers, and I think that network is what makes the business work. We have drivers, right? Our driver partners are our constituents, they're our customers. We're dependent on them and their success and their commitment to build successful businesses globally. Drivers go through a process where they're screened, checked for insurance and license, and then there's a really robust rating system for any of you that have used Uber where you can leave feedback, and that feedback is transmitted and responded to. This is a photo of a gentleman named Riyad Sharifi. He's one of our early driver partners in San Francisco, and similar to the story I told in South Africa, this is where we get excited. Riyad was actually what we call in the U.S. An illegal cab operator, and Steve, a guy you know well, Ryan McKillen, was at a bar in San Francisco, and Ryan walked out of the bar, and Riyad was just sort of had his window down and said, "Hey Ryan, can I give you a ride?" And Ryan said, "No, I work for Uber, don't worry about it, but you should come look at working with Uber." So Riyad came in, we asked him to get the appropriate license and insurance. He came on the Uber system with one car that he was driving for somebody else. And today he owns 7 cars. He has a robust business. He had a son recently, and he named his son Ryan after the Uber engineer who introduced him to the product. The idea of empowerment, of enabling business owners to succeed and enabling people to make more efficient use of their resources and assets, whether it's a professional like Riyad or a student in Brussels who's driving his Volkswagen Polo around, is part of what makes this work and part of how we seek to change the inefficiencies in existing transport systems in existing cities. The other side of our equation is our riders, our customers as well. We've done some tongue-in-cheek things where what we're doing with our product is delivering you a car. What you choose to do with it is up to you. You can keep the car for 6 hours, you can take the car just across the road. So one day we realized that, and we said, what would be a cool thing to deliver to people? Well, everybody likes ice cream. So we delivered ice cream. And every summer we put ice cream trucks on the Uber platform, and you're able to request an ice cream truck to come to your home or your office and have some ice cream delivered. It's an indicator, it's a funny thing, but it's really an indicator of what's possible, right? Which is we're building a network of vehicles delivering logistics to new cities, a new platform for urban logistics. So we've done some jokes, right? Like some tongue-in-cheek things with helicopters that can be requested in New York City or jets that can be requested from Paris to Cannes. But what's really encouraging and what's really got incredible potential is once we deliver a car to you in 2 minutes in New York City, there is not a lot we cannot deliver to you in 2 minutes in New York City. And so at the bottom is a product we have called Uber Rush, which is essentially a messenger service in New York City. So fashion designers, law firms who need to move things around a particular area use this to make the movement of goods easier. So it's not just about moving people. Think about moving goods or delivering services. We've partnered with some great organizations, and we've learned a lot from them. Payments, events, transportation, technology. We've even partnered with GE, who now owns the DeLorean, I guess, mark, and put DeLoreans on Uber as well. I get asked a lot about Sofia. I've been here for a day, and people have asked me a lot about Sofia, and when are you coming here, and what's the product here, and how do you make it work? And I'm incredibly bullish on the market opportunity. We're actively looking for employees here and looking to hire here. So please reach out if joining our team is of interest to you. I think there's tremendous opportunity in this region as it develops and grows and seeks transportation alternatives and options. Thank you very much for having me. It's been a privilege. Happy to answer any questions.